Dear students, welcome to ePathshala. I am Dr. Rakesh Thakur, Associate Professor, Department of Sociology, Postgraduate Government College Sector 11, Chandigarh. Today's module is about agencies of globalization, international donors and funding agencies. In today's module, we are going to understand what is globalization, what are the agencies of globalization, and how international donors and funding agencies influence the process of globalization. Briefly, let me give you a background in which I would emphasize that post-World War II saw a deep growing concern among world organization, state government, and group of philanthropic people who came together to alleviate the poverty that had beset the world. It is these donors and funding agencies, including in our own country, India, has helped us eradicate many social problems. One of them has been the eradication of malaria. So much funding comes because the whole notion of welfare state lies that not only certain part of the world can be prosperous and happy. Prosperity and happiness needs to be spread worldwide. So let's go on and discuss the role of these international donors and funding agencies in vis-a-vis globalization. Today is an era of a globalized world, and globalization can be influenced or enhanced by many factors or agents, and anything which helps in the flow of information and resources, leading to an impact on the process of globalization, can be considered as an agent of globalization. These agents may range from an individual to factors like media, trade, communication, financial flow, and to phenomena like migration and mass culture. There are numerous agents of globalization. However, one of the most important agents is international donors or agencies. These international donor or agencies are the focus of today's module. In the contemporary globalized scenario, international donors seem to be performing a very significant role in enhancing and promoting globalization and changing the picture of Indian society. It has made Indian society accessible to the resources and new development of the whole world. But this relationship faces both appreciation as well as criticism. Let's first understand what do we mean by the term globalization. Ernst and Fish define globalization, and I quote, globalization as a set of social, economic, political, commercial, and technological process through which social life has assumed relatively distance-less and place-less qualities. From a sociological point of view, globalization has resulted in dramatic improvement in the standard of living of people and resulted in exposure of people with the outside world. The process of globalization has been influenced by many agents, ranging from an individual to factors like media, trade, communication, financial flow, and to phenomena like migration and mass culture. Thus, anything which helps in the flow of information and resources leading to globalization can be called an agent. Among the wider number of agents of globalization, international donors or agencies can be considered as one of the most important contributor to the phenomenon of globalization. International donors are mainly an affluent country, organizations or foundations which were formed by a country, group of countries or private companies which play a major role in bringing development of the lesser developed areas and bringing the world together as one. History of the international donors showed that major multinational donor organizations and institutions emerged basically to contribute to post-war reconstruction, but later turned towards more philanthropic activities towards development of poor and developing nations. You all have heard and studied in social sciences that after World War II ended, there was a clamor of freedom amongst many nation states which were erstwhile colonies of the empire. To put it simply, European nations were the master, whereas their Asian and African counterparts were the colonies. All these colonies were plundered of their wealth and resources to enrich the master nation. It was a sense of guilt. It was a sense of setting things correct that led many philanthropists from developing nation to understand that why they remained underdeveloped. These philanthropists from developed nation who undertook the study of developing nation felt that they must do something to bring the third world countries at par with the first world country. It is in this mission that we find that international donor and their agencies, they played an important role. Let's understand the whole process of development through international donors and agencies. International donors and their work stimulates more investment, supply resources ranging from money to ideas, increase import of goods as well as technology, and more easy human mobility to the receiving countries, leading to a huge impact towards faster globalization. Thus, we must understand that these countries, these agencies, these donors from the developed world were not only on a philanthropic mission, but there was so much more to it. Let's understand the various kind of these donors. Full differentiated international donors into three types, namely bilateral donors, secondly multilateral donors, and at the third level private philanthropic organizations. Thus we talked about three types of donors: bilateral, multilateral, and private philanthropic organization. Let's understand what are these, what do they mean. Bilateral donors are one single country, that is a government, who provide donation aid to another single recipient country or government such as Canada, Japan, and USA. Multilateral donors. Multilateral donors are aid providers formed by a group of countries or an institution which represent a group of countries and provide assistance to one or more recipient countries. And these donors are World Bank, International Monetary Fund, Asian Development Bank, and like. The third category, private philanthropic organization. Private philanthropic organizations are non-government organizations and are engaged in charity work in various countries and work in different spheres like the Bill Gates Foundation, the Bill and the Melinda Gates Foundation, the Ford Foundation, and other such foundations. After having explained the three kind of donor agencies, let's now try and understand the role of international donor in a globalizing India. India is a developing as well as a highly populated country, and hence foreign donation has a huge role in its growth and development. International assistance was received from numerous countries and international organizations in the various forms such as equipments and commodities, technical assistance in the form of the service of experts and training facilities. International donors bring globalization, that is, bring the whole world together to fight issues and problems faced by developing countries like India. The relationship of international donors and globalization can be said as bidirectional because international donors enhance the process of globalization, but at the same time, the phenomenon of globalization has also made the world aware of India's issues, problems, and potential, and thus attract the attention of international donors to render help towards India. The impact of international donors on the whole world, especially the developing countries like India, cannot be denied. However, its impact has been appreciated by some while criticized by others. As I said in the beginning, the Indian population, the Indian Development Program does need donors, funding, and agencies, especially in rural, backward India. This is a positive aspect of international aid agencies coming and helping. But at the other hand, those who are against says, why does the state fail, or is the state compromising on any of its principles by accepting money from these international donors? Before we would deliberate on the positive impact of international donors and negative impact of international donors, always remember that these are perspective towards social reality. These are not final, these are not binding, and they are ever changing in today's globalized world. Let's first look at the positive impact of international donors. The international donors have immensely contributed in bringing lots of positive changes to the society. And I would begin by mentioning Elevation of poverty. India is a highly populated country with a high percentage of its citizens living in poverty. Most of the donations that India receives are primarily focused to uplift the poor and the slum dwellers. The second sector where there is a lot of funding agency contribute, donors are coming forward, is in the area of empowerment of women and children. Many international organizations provide health facilities like spreading awareness for precautionary health measures for children or building schools for children living in villages, etc. Apart from elevation of poverty, empowerment of women and children, the third sector which attracts many donors in this country is the sector of health and medical facilities. Many donors would like the general population to have better health and medical facilities as it is existing now. To put it in other words, standard of living of majority of the population of India is poor and unhygienic, causing disease like malaria. International organizations like WHO, World Health Organization, have granted huge loan and initiated numerous programs to eradicate malaria from the country. Help rendered by international donors also leads to a better transportation, advanced technologies, create more jobs, establish better economic and social infrastructure, increase standard of living of the people, and so on. The proponents of international donors believed that it would benefit both the donors and the recipient and would accelerate the process of globalization. However, it is not free from criticism and negative consequences. So after explaining to you the positive consequences, now let's try and understand the negative consequences. The critics point out that there is too much of commercial and political interference. Recently, it has been seen that international donors have received criticism that to safeguard their own interest, they have been interfering in the political affairs of the receiving country. As a social scientist, you must dwell on this point. Which is a lesser evil? This needs to be thought about. What exactly does a country need? Moreover, at another level, there is a disproportionate distribution of advantages. A.B. Gaz argues that donations received in India from international organizations tend to benefit majorly the urban population and not the poor masses. Dependency. The fourth criticism is that international donation can increase the dependency of less developed country on donor countries. Let me now conclude this talk by saying that globalization has made its impact on every part of the world, and India is no exception. It is carried out with the help of many agents and international donors and are considered one of the most important agents of globalization. From a sociological perspective, international donors help in development of the poor, underdeveloped, and bring positive changes in the society. The relationship of international donors and globalization can be said as bidirectional because international donors enhance the process of globalization, and at the same time, globalization has made the world aware of India's issues, problem, and potential, and attract the attention of international donors towards India. In the end, although these agencies and donors have hugely contributed in bringing lots of positive changes to the society, these donors have faced certain criticism too, as they seem to be tweaking the political nature of the country in terms of who forms the government. In conclusion, what I would like to re-emphasize and reiterate is that though in the beginning we saw that it was a welcome step when international donors and funding agencies came to remove the ills that plagued any developing society. But there is a certain sense of concern, and that concern lies about the sovereignty of a country, the influence that these international donor and funding agencies have within the political class, the kind of view and understanding regarding development that they propagate. Remember, as a sociologist, everything has to be taken with objectivity in mind. How grandiose the idea of development, the idea of reconstruction of society might appear from the lens of this international donor and funding agencies. Local concern, the cultural context, and what does the country want should be central before we accept the diktats of this international donor or funding agencies. In the end, I would say that the country needs to use its wisdom to balance the pros and cons of international donor and funding agencies coming to reduce the ills which plague our society. Thank you.